5 Odd Star Trek TNG details you only notice when rewatching the first few episodes. Some details from Star Trek The Next Generation's earliest episodes seem strange upon rewatch. With its feature-length premiere, Encounter at Farpoint, Star Trek The Next Generation introduced the world to Captain Jean-Luc Picard Patrick Stewart and his crew aboard the USS Enterprise D. There's a lot to love about Encounter at Farpoint, and TNG's earliest episodes do a solid job of introducing Star Trek The Next Generation's main characters, but it's clear many details weren't quite ironed out yet. Like Star Trek, the original series Star Trek The Next Generation told mostly standalone stories that wrapped up in one episode, and this is especially true during the show's first season. As the television landscape began to shift toward more serialized storytelling throughout the 1990s, TNG began incorporating more callbacks to earlier episodes. While many of the details established in Star Trek The Next Generation's first season stuck, others changed over time as the show's producers figured out what worked and what didn't. Encounter at Farpoint establishes that Commander William Riker, Jonathan Frakes, and Counselor Deanna Troi Marina Sirtis were involved in a romantic relationship before Star Trek The Next Generation, and they still have feelings for one another. Deanna refers to Riker as Bill on 2 separate occasions in TNG Season 1, in Episode 3, The Naked Now, and Episode 11, Haven. After these 2 instances, no one ever calls Riker Bill again, instead referring to him as Will. According to Star Trek The Next Generation companion, Riker's original character description said that he was privately called William by Picard and Bill by female friends. Interestingly, no one really calls Riker William either, and in TNG Season 6, Episode 10, Chain of Command, Part I, he even states that he prefers Will over William. It's possible Bill is meant to reference William Shatner, whose friends refer to him as Bill, but the nickname simply didn't stick when it came to Riker. Star Trek The Next Generation's premiere made a big deal about the holodeck as a new technology available on the USS Enterprise D. When Commander Riker first searches for LT, Commander Data Brent Spiner on the holodeck, he is amazed by the recreation of an incredibly realistic forest. Wesley Crusher Will Wheaton soon joins Riker and Data on the holodeck and accidentally falls into a river. When the 3 exit the holodeck, Wesley is still drenched head to toe from the river water. A few episodes later, in TNG Episode 14, Angel One, Wesley and a friend are having a snowball fight on the holodeck when Captain Picard opens the door and gets hit in the face with a snowball. In other instances, anything that leaves the holodeck dematerializes instantly. Although Star Trek has not always been consistent with how the holodeck works, scenes like this suggest that some simple items are replicated like water, while other, more complex things like humans are holograms that cannot exist outside of the holodeck. Many of Star Trek The Next Generation's characters change after the show's premiere, but none more than Counselor Deanna Troi. As established in Encounter at Farpoint, Troi is half Betazoid, meaning that she can sense the emotions of those around her. While Troy's empathic abilities would play a significant role throughout TNG, they work somewhat differently in the premiere than they do in later episodes. For many fans of Star Trek The Next Generation, revisiting the early episodes of the series is a nostalgic voyage back to where it all began. But while the Enterprise D's maiden journeys have a charm all their own, they also feature some truly strange details that stand out far more on a second or fifth rewatch. Between experimental character choices, bizarre costume decisions, and curious inconsistencies, the first few episodes feel like a slightly alternate version of the show we eventually came to know and love. Here are 5 odd details from the early TNG episodes that you might not catch the first time around, but once you do, you'll never unsee them. 1. Troy's emotions are turned up to 11. In later seasons, Deanna Troi is a calm, empathetic counselor who gently advises the crew with insight and restraint. But early TNG? She's an emotional firestorm. In the first few episodes, Troi frequently clutches her temples as if she's trying to fend off a migraine from the emotional tsunami she's detecting. Whether it's sensing pain, so much pain, or delivering dramatically breathy observations like a spacefaring oracle, early Troi feels like she wandered in from a different show altogether, possibly a space soap opera. It's clear that the writers weren't quite sure how to write for an empath yet. Instead of using her abilities subtly, they turned them into melodramatic outbursts. It's entertaining to watch in retrospect, but also a little jarring. 2. Everyone's uniforms are way too tight. This one might not hit you on a first viewing, but once you notice it, it becomes comically distracting. The uniforms in the early episodes are tight. Like, uncomfortably tight. As in, the actors couldn't sit down without wrinkling them. Apparently, the original spandex uniforms were so form-fitting that the cast had chronic back pain, leading Patrick Stewart to eventually threaten to leave the show unless they were redesigned. These early uniforms also had zippers in strange places and occasionally rode up during scenes, creating some awkward moments on screen. By season 3, the show transitioned to wool blend two-piece suits, both more professional and, thankfully, more comfortable. But those first episodes, the crew of the Enterprise D look like they're dressed by a future obsessed with Pilates instructors. 3. Data smiles. A lot. And it's creepy. In later seasons, Data's signature charm is his innocent curiosity and earnest attempts to understand humanity. He rarely smiles, at least not naturally, because he doesn't experience emotions. But in the first few episodes, Data smiles constantly. Not little polite grins either. We're talking full-on beaming, wide-eyed, teeth-baring smiles that make him look more like a rogue android about to malfunction than a lovable artificial life form. This may have been a creative decision to show Data trying to mimic human behavior, but it definitely feels off when you know the direction the character takes later. The cheerful robot thing doesn't quite mesh with the more thoughtful, emotionally restrained Data we grow to admire. Brent Spiner himself later admitted that they were still figuring out how robotic or human Data should be early on. 4. Picard hates kids like really hates them. Captain Picard is the wise, diplomatic, emotionally guarded leader we all came to respect. But in the early episodes, he's also hilariously uncomfortable around children. While this trait was always part of his character arc, the early portrayals are almost cartoonishly exaggerated. In the first episode alone, Encounter at Farpoint, Picard practically recoils at the idea of interacting with Wesley Crusher. He even tells Riker that he wants him to handle all child-related duties aboard the ship. There's a scene where Picard awkwardly attempts to make small talk with a young boy and ends up flailing worse than a malfunctioning replicator. It's meant to be endearing, or maybe funny, but it borders on weird. Watching the character who would later embrace his role as a mentor and even a father figure struggle with basic empathy is bizarre in retrospect. 5. The Enterprise D feels kind of like a hotel. The sets in the early episodes are immaculate, but they also have a strange, almost sterile quality to them. The bridge is bathed in warm beige tones, the hallways are eerily quiet, and 10 Forward hasn't even been introduced yet. In these episodes, the ship doesn't feel like a living, bustling vessel of exploration, it feels like a luxury space hotel. The wood paneling, pastel carpets, and ambient lighting create a vibe more suited to a Hilton than a flagship of the Federation. Even the music contributes to the strangeness. The early episodes often